This episode is dedicated to all of you that think that pastors lead boring lives. And also, we're going to talk about a new executive order creating an office for the faith. What's all that about? Stick around and you'll find out what we're talking about.
Welcome to my take. Well, it's not my take, it's Miguel Crespo's take. Whatever. For inspiration to go.
Welcome to My Take, Pastor Crespo here. My Take is your oasis of inspiration and hope in the desert of negativity and despair. Thank you for being a part of the My Take family and joining the podcast. Today, as I said, I'm going to be sharing some things with you that have been happening in the news lately, and that I think is going to be pretty interesting. I have some special guests, some colleagues of mine. I want to introduce you to them before we go any further. I have two gentlemen here, pastors from different parts of the state of New York. I'm gonna go in no particular order. The one in the middle there, Pastor Giovanni Esposito. Welcome to the podcast, preacher.
Thank you, Pastor, for this invite. I'm excited for today's conversation.
Yeah, and Pastor Luis Soto as well. Welcome, preacher.
Thank you, Pastor, for the invitation. Pastor Gio, greetings for you, my friend. It's good to spend this time with you guys as we discuss some of these things that are happening right now in the country.
There you go. And now, just if you're watching, and depending on where you're at, I want to let you know that these two men are Bible teaching, God fearing men. Pastor Gio is working in the Syracuse, New York area. So if you're out there in Syracuse, you need to check him out. Pastor Gio, if people want to just catch you online, where would the best place be for them to find you?
Yep, we have at the Westville SDA Church, we have three formats. It's Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, and it's just one simple search for Westville SDA, and you should be able to find us and find this bald guy there on some of the posts that are there.
Pastor Soto, you're out in the Capital District. That's the Capital District of New York, by the way. I know that
Yes,
if I say Albany, that's kind of actually limiting you because you're not just in the Albany area. You're in what is it? Albany,
that's correct.
Gloversville,
Albany, Amsterdam, and yes,
and
and
Gloversville.
Amsterdam.
That's right. That's right. Well, shout out to all of those
Yes.
saints out there. If someone wants to catch you
Yes.
online, where could they go to catch you online?
Well, personally, if you want to follow me, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and also YouTube. You can just go and find my name, and you will find me there. And also in Twitter, now known as X.
Yeah.
Also, you can follow our churches, the Capital Hispanic Church in Albany. You can do it in Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and the Amsterdam Church in Facebook, and the Gloversville Church on Facebook too. So you can
There you
go there, search for those churches, and follow us.
Well, I want to make sure and let people know if you want to, listen to these two men, get, and especially if you're in their area, look them up. Look them up. I know you'll be blessed. Now, guys, I want to get into these two articles here, and I'm going to start with this. I don't know when you were growing up, if you knew that you were going to become a pastor or not. I certainly did not. As a matter of fact, I thought pastors were some of the most boring people. They always had these long faces and they always walk so stiff. But for those of you that think that our jobs are boring, we need to talk about a little thing that happened recently in Virginia. So I want to get some reaction from you. Let me share this with you. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it can get boring, but the article is about a man in Virginia who gets drunk. He breaks into a Bible study and begins to accuse them of human trafficking. All right. Now, pastors, I want you to put yourself in the shoes because I'm going to ask you a question in a minute. So it says here that, by the way, I have a picture of the guy here. Let me see if there you go. This sleepy looking fellow. Because they must have taken that shot. He was obviously drunk. His name is.
He was drunk at that time, obviously.
That are really tired. His name is David Campbell of I believe of Stafford, Virginia, and this is public information, so I don't want to get in trouble. But apparently, this guy, he decided he went out for a night of drinking. He got drunk. He comes back, and the article says that he was upset because a bunch of people were parked in an area that he thought, it was his place to park. He got drunk, he called the police, and then it says he broke into the Bible study session, believing it to be a human trafficking operation. Now, according to the cops, he actually got to the point here where, let me read this here. His neighbors told the deputies that Campbell forced his way into the home as the group was conversing about the gospel. And according to them, he would nearly strike an ordained minister and threaten to punch another man. And of course, that's
Oh
about the
wow.
time when the police came and they showed up, and of course, then had to take the man into custody. Now, here's the thing: for those of you that think that our lives are boring, you know, this is not a one-off. Pastors live dangerously, right? So my question to
Yes,
you guys,
that's correct.
we're gonna start with Pastor Soto. Pastor Soto, question: have you ever had anything close to this happen in your ministry? So Pastor Soto, I know we're having a little technical difficulty here, but uh, with this article, I'm gonna start with you, Pastor Soto, first. Have you ever had anything close to this happen in your ministry?
Yes, let me tell you, it's pretty unbelievable. But I remember it like today. I remember that I was working as a Bible worker in Alabama with the Gulf States Conference. The pastor, a shout out to the pastor, Pastor Michael Rodriguez from Cuba. He's now the youth director. He might remember the story, so I'm not alone in this. So we were doing an outside a tent campaign, and it was in a neighborhood. There was a lot of apartments there, and I remember that it was like the third night I was preaching, and suddenly a drunk guy, like our friend here, David Campbell, he came
Oh
into the
wow.
tent and he sat in a chair, and then like after a couple of minutes he started walking like slowly, and then he was speeding up to me. He was walking towards me. I was lucky enough because I was getting ready. I was like, "Oh, who's this guy? Let me get ready to defend myself." But then, thanks God, the Lord provided two marvelous deacons, and they were ready and they were prepared, and they intercept the drunk man. And thanks God, they pull him out of the area. They start talking to him, and everything was moved smoothly after that.
So,
But let me tell you, when you are a pastor, there are many experiences that you go through that you share with people, and people don't believe it many times because they might think it's not truth. But yes, especially when you are preaching outside on uh, when you are on a tent, or just at the corner, or preaching to homeless people in different areas, you can be assaulted many different times. Thanks God, nothing happened to me, but the guy had the intention to jump towards me.
yeah, I
Yeah.
remember you telling me one time you had a drunk guy come into church. This was in the Albany area while you were in the middle of a sermon.
Oh yes, yes,
Can you
yes.
just
That was
talk
like
a
two
little bit
years
about that?
ago. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so at that time at the Hispanic church, we were not preaching yet. It was during the pandemic. We were getting ready to start the divine service. Where that time of the sermon of the service where you are as a pastor just getting ready to preach. I'm saying this for people that are not Adventists, right, or don't go to church. So, and then we're getting ready. We're just there at the lobby. I'm sharing the information with the elders and the deacons and the people that are going to help me lead the service. And then we open the main door because somebody was knocking, and then we open the door. That guy, that black guy, like 6'4" or 6'5", he was drunk and coming inside the church, and he was forcing his way. And then with a loud voice and everything. And then thanks God, a couple of the elders were there. We were able to neutralize the guy. We didn't hit him, but we were ready just in case because we had a lot of children and women inside there. But we were ready. And then we put him out. We
Neutralize
talked to him. Yes, neutralize. I have to take care of my language, right?
Okay,
Neutralize the target,
I
right?
like that.
The danger. So and then we reasoned with him. I had to get ready to go to get into the pulpit. But then the deacons and some of the elders reasoned with him, and thanks God he just left the church. I
Yeah,
remember that I called you a couple of days
that's
later
right.
because we
That's right.
had to discuss that, right? So,
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, ministry is
thank
quite interesting. It's funny sometimes.
ministry is dangerous stuff. For
thank
those of you
God
that
for the
did,
holy SWAT team.
that's it. I,
I
I, I.
remember,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yes, I remember something that one of the members told me. Hey, pastor, you know when something like that happens, you don't have to do anything. Leave that to me. You are the man of God. You you preach, but leave that to me. You know.
It's
And
nice
that
to
guy
have
is
people
Oh
like
like
yeah.
that.
6'3". You know.
Yeah, it's nice to have people like that in the church.
So,
Pastor Esposito,
yes,
Pastor
yes.
Gio, as many of us refer to you as Pastor Gio. Have you had anything like this happen before? Anything even close to this?
And the closest thing, well, I thank God it wasn't really directly. I did get a phone call one Sabbath afternoon, one
Mm.
Saturday afternoon, and I remember the police called me and it says, "Hey, are you Pastor Esposito? Are you the pastor of the Auburn Church?" At that time, I was pastoring the Auburn Church, and I told him, "Yeah, what's going on?" And I'm thinking somebody broke in or something, and he says, "Well, we're calling you to let you know we got a hold of a gentleman. I forget his name. He told me his name, and he said he had plans to go to your church service today and to shoot, just go up there and
Mm,
and
Wow.
and shoot up the place." And I told him why, what's the deal? I didn't recognize the name,
yeah.
um, but lo and behold, I think he had a wife that was part of the community that comes in for community services, in which they pick up clothes and they pick up different things. And the wife was there, and the husband would routinely pick her up and drop her off to the location, to the church. So he knew precisely where it was. I think he came in home drunk. The wife got upset. They were going back and forth, and I don't know why she brought it to the conversation that she was going to go to the church and tell the church the type of man that he was. And he
Yeah.
got so upset that he was going to do that,
Wow.
in his drunkenness, he's like, oh yeah, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna go just take my gun and I'm just gonna get rid of like, just
Yeah.
whatever, right? Shoot up the place, whatever. And he took off. The wife noticed what she had did, so she got scared. She called the cops immediately, and they picked him up a block
Wow.
before coming to church.
Wow.
And they detained him, they got him, but that was probably the most scary thing, because I had to let the board know, hey, this is what's coming. And I got probably along the same lines that Pastor Soto got with the brother that was there. And he goes, like, don't worry about it, if anything goes that down, we're going to be ready. And so, but that was scary. There was another occasion, and I'm going to make this one quick, that I thought it was funny and hilarious, and it gave me an interesting perspective as well. Now, it's not related sort of to this, but there was a drunk guy that came in. We were in I believe it was a university church. One of the students came in drunk, and they began to yell. The student was going through a hard time, whatever, but he came in and he just started disrupting the program. And I remember the senior pastor, I was in the pastoral team there. I remember Pastor Abby at the time. He's just telling him, "Hey, don't kick him out. Leave him there, because within his drunkenness, he might catch the gospel." I thought that was interesting that he
Wow.
said that, but he said, like, "No, don't kick him out. Leave him there. Just tell him not to disrupt." And I remember somebody sitting there with him the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't know if the guy was ever evangelized or not, but I thought that was an interesting one. That to me was hilarious. Comes like, how is he going to catch the gospel? But I
Well,
remember asking him about it later. But that to me one
Yeah.
seemed a little funny as well.
we live in a
The
strange
the
world, man. I
funny
don't.
thing, Pastor,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Luis.
the funny thing, Pastor Crespo, is that in the Bible we have a lot of examples of Jesus casting demons out of people, but there is not a single
Yeah.
instance where Jesus or any of the disciples or a prophet cast alcohol out of a person, right? So we don't have evidence
Well, they
of that.
call it spirits.
So
Yeah.
They
it's
call
quite
alcohol
interesting.
spirits. So watch out. The one of the names for
Well,
alcohol
we
is spirit.
can
No, you're
We
right.
can
You're right.
interpolate that, right?
So guys,
Yeah.
let me share something with you. See, the reason I wanted to share this article and get feedback was because when I read this, two things. One, people think that our lives that we're just a bunch of boring people that we don't do anything, and pastors just they visit and drink tea all day with people, and this can get pretty crazy, right? Now, of course, we can kind of be lighthearted about it, but some of this stuff is real serious. But I want to share something with you. When I read this article, it reminded me of. Let me show you something here. If you right now, if you and those of you watching, go online and search Miguel Crespo arrested, right? And you're going to come up with something like this. Okay? I want you to read real quick. U.S. versus Crespo. Miguel
Uh-oh.
Crespo pled guilty to drug charges and was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. Okay. People v Crespo 2014. Here's another one. This one is the big one. Man sentenced to death for killing a transgender inmate. You know what the name of the man is that did the killing? His name is Miguel
Miguel.
Crespo. Okay. So we live in a really, really dangerous world, guys. We live in a world where bad things happen. And when I read this, I was like, man, you become a pastor, you want to do good things, and the gospel is supposed to be good news, and you're supposed to help people, but uh, ministry is a full contact sport sometimes, and it can get pretty crazy. I
Have you ever
remember,
been asked about that?
yes,
Sorry, Pastor. Have you
no,
ever
no,
been asked about that?
yes, my first few months as a pastor, I mean, I had just gotten hired, okay? And I got a phone call one night from a church member that said, "Hey, are you okay?" And I was like, "Why are you calling me?" "Of course I'm okay." "Are you sure?" "Well, of course. Why?" "Well, turn on the news." Turned on the news. The news was reporting that two guys broke into Miguel Crespo's home and shot him in the
Oh
leg.
man.
And so they're
Oh.
reporting on the break in. The
Oh.
police responded to a shooting. Miguel Crespo shot in the leg, and they believe that it was a drug related crime. They broke in because Miguel Crespo had drugs. And I'm a brand new pastor, guys. I mean, so they didn't know who the members didn't know even. They're like, wait a minute, we just
Right.
hired this guy. Maybe. And so I had to call
That's
my
funny.
superiors and say, if you hear this, yeah, it's been nuts for me. I could tell you some stories, man. But the idea this is just a funny article. But for those of you that think that pastors' lives are boring, you need to think again. There's all sorts of crazy things that happens. Uh, thankfully, in these stories we've shared, no one's been hurt. But it's crazy out there, right? Oh, I could tell you some
Yeah.
stories, man.
I guess the moral of the story is never take a drunk guy's parking.
That, that's it. Clearly mark when you're in somebody's house,
It's
put a
it,
sign up. This
it's
is a Bible study.
yeah, it's so unfortunate that we don't have the body cam for that.
Yeah, right, right. Oh, I know. Oh, you never know. Maybe we'll find it. We'll put it up. But in my podcast here, I have done stupid criminal stories and tied them to Bible stories. I don't know if this would qualify to fit in that category, but man, it comes awful close.
It's
All
close,
right,
yeah.
so let's get serious for a minute. I wanna ask you, if you've been watching the news lately, something really interesting happened, and I wanna get your thoughtful reaction to this. So, um, if you've been watching the news, you know that with a new administration, President Trump was elected in November, and he's come in, and pretty much when he started, as soon as the inauguration was over, he started issuing executive order after executive order after executive order. He
Mhm.
did something that has received very little news, very little notice, but to me, I think is a big deal. And so I wanted to share it with you and get feedback from you. So let me do some reading here. It's not very long. It says here in February of 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump ordered the creation of the White House Faith Office. A new White House office, according to the order creating the office, its purpose is to assist faith based entities, community organizations, and houses of worship in their efforts to strengthen American families, promote work and self sufficiency, and protect religious liberty. Now, the couple of other things that I want to share with you here. Um, I'm not one of these people that I cry the sky is falling. I don't get all bent out of shape every time I hear a little bit of news. This is not something brand new. In other words, Trump did not just create this. This has been a part of American government for a while. I just wasn't aware of it. Let me keep reading here. It says the organization, that is the White House Faith Office, it replaces the former White House Office of Faith Based and Community Initiatives. That's what it was called before. And it will be part of the Domestic Policy Council. Now, what is the purpose of this? This was what I thought was interesting. What does the White House Faith Office do? What are they going to do? Well, they're going to assist faith based entities and community organizations. But the thing that was interesting here, it says they will uh, consult and seek information from experts and various faith and community leaders. So they're going to talk to some of the more prominent faith leaders in the country, and they will make recommendations to the president regarding changes to policies, programs, and practices that would affect the ability of faith based entities and houses of worship to serve families and communities. So part of their thing is to do a bunch of research, talk to a bunch of people, make recommendations to the president, and really to fight against any discrimination against Christians, individuals, or Christian churches and ministries. So I want to just give some feedback. What are your thoughts? Is in your mind? Is it good, bad, indifferent? I mean, I would think that trying to stop discrimination against Christians, I think that's a worthy thing. We need to do that, right? What do you say? Let's start with Pastor
Hmm.
Gio. What do you think about this?
There's two things that kind of pop out on my mind here. Is, well, number one, it sounds great. um and just reading the tea leaves, if you will, and restoring Christian Judeo values and into our government, into our society, and making a push for that is very, I would say, noteworthy. And to a certain degree, as a pastor, you kind of say, hey, that's great. You do want a society that has more Christian values, more Christian based approach to a worldview. However, the president is established with this is what I worry, because if someone else comes after this, let's say another, it doesn't matter who, right? Whether it's Republican or Democrat, and they establish something that they feel it's, maybe they want to establish their personal guru or something, then, if a president comes that's not a Christian believer, then that can potentially change things. So that's the only concern that really I have. I don't know. Some people would claim, like, in a more Christian base, a worry might possibly between church and state. I don't know if that
Mm-hmm.
applies to this necessarily, but that would be my only concern, because if you have another president that has other type of values that they wish to explore, and I think we've seen it with past presidents as well, it could have a tendency of abuse a little bit, or maybe infringement in what happens in houses of worship and
Mm-hmm.
Christianity at large. So I don't know.
Okay.
I guess it's to be seen, but it sounds great. At least in that first initial uh, uh,
Right.
description there.
Right. So Soto, what do you think, Pastor?
Yeah, so it is interesting. It is interesting. Yeah, you ask, like, what do you think about that? Is it good? Is it bad? Well, it depends who you are. Like, if you are a Republican, a Christian, that you follow Christianity, and also you are a political person, then you are happy because it is your ideas, your values are being promoted from the political standpoint. But if you are a Democrat, many people are not happy because these are not the values that, let's say, the other political party, was not defending. In fact, the last 4 years and the previous administration, we can see that, if we remember, that they were promoting other type of ideologies, right? But in reality, if you are a person that you are not political, in some sense, as Pastor Gio said, this is good, because what are the Christian values? Freedom, right? Freedom, liberty for you to worship, that your beliefs can be respected, that you are not judged or discriminated against just because you are Christian. The thing is that, as with every other idea, everything that is tied to politics brings collateral damage, right? Collateral damage. And as Pastor Gio says, look, okay, the idea is good, beautiful, but the problem is not the original idea. It might be good. The problem is down the road what might happen with that, right? So what if the next person is a Catholic, the next administration? What if the other administration is Muslim, or they are or they just have other type of ideology? So if the country is going to be run based on who is in charge of with the different ideologies that they have, and this is that they are going to push, then we have a problem, because at some point we will not have so much freedom as we expect that we're going to have. And if only the values of a president are going to be exalted or respected or free to express, then this is problematic. So, and also it comes to the point of division between church and state, right? So many people might say, oh, I should be worried, or we should be worried, because now we see that the government is providing a stage or a special voice to the Christian church. And in some sense it might be true, in some sense it might not. But once again, the problem is that this is being put together with politics. So, and when it is put together with politics, then there is a lot of things that you can
Yeah.
complain about it and say about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I to me, I think, as I was reading this, and you know what I found interesting, guys, is that this is something that came out, and everything that I've done to try and research it, I've only been able to get an article with one or two paragraphs. Some of the different
Yeah.
executive orders
Yeah.
and decisions, they have a lot of information on this, pros, cons, and this and that. This one, for whatever reason, there's not a lot of information on there. But let me share something with you that I read that kind of it set some antennas off where I'm uncomfortable. Kind of, I mean, I'm piggybacking on what both of you are saying, but
Hmm.
one of the things that the White House Faith Office, called the White House Faith Office, not the Office of Faith. So, the White House Faith Office is their job. That what they want to do. This is weird. It says they want to establish faith liaisons in every federal agency that does not already have a center of faith. So
Hmm.
every agency in the government, they want to have a department of faith. So again, it's to protect against Christians being discriminated against, which is very good. But if you
Hmm.
are a listener on this podcast and you're not familiar with history, I know that these two gentlemen, saying that one statement probably is setting off some things that you're familiar with. If you study the history of the Roman Empire, when Christians were persecuted because they believed in one God, and if you wanted to be a faithful Roman subject, you had to believe in many gods. Even the emperor had to be a god, right? But when
Hmm.
Constantine, the emperor, became a Christian, he started to favor Christianity, and he favored Christianity, and that became the kind of like the in religion at the time. Um,
Yeah.
but then
Hmm.
after a while, what happened? After a while, Christianity got on its own 2 feet. It got stronger and stronger. And even when the Roman Empire, when the emperors declined, you know that there were still church representatives in every nation in Europe. Uh, you
Yes,
know,
and let me say something, add something to that. Recently, many historians and intellectuals say or claim that the Roman Empire never fell. It became a church.
switched.
It became the church. So, and that's totally truth what you are saying.
Yeah.
So that's the worry for
Right.
many people there, the connection between politics and church.
And so that's the concern that I see. I think this is a good thing. I think Christians have been in the arena, in the government arena, in business, a lot of them find themselves sometimes. If you believe in the Christian teachings, people make fun of you, they ridicule you. Sometimes you need to have maybe your day of worship respected, and you have to jump through hoops for your job so you don't lose it. Um,
Yeah.
I'm concerned about where this may go, just like what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
Regarding that, let me ask you, Pastor, a question.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that this might be the beginning of the Christian lobbying, like the lobbies, the Christian lobbies, like
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
where churches and
Lobbyist.
organizations
Yeah.
will be able to lobbyists, right? So that will
Hmm.
be able to send their liaisons, like they were sending every federal agency, in order so they can make sure that the rights of Christians are protected. Do you do you think this is going that way, or it might go or not, or I'm going to
That's a good question.
uh, to
I
corporate with that question?
I'm gonna let Gio answer that one. Pressure's on you, Gio. Give the man an answer.
Yeah, I think that's we don't know yet. I mean, it's so raw at the moment right now. I mean, a lot of it would be speculation. We've seen history, right? We say that history repeats itself. So I
Hmm.
think, I if any erudite of the Bibles, and then when you read, for example, Revelation, when you read the book of Daniel, when you read these type of books, it all points to that direction that you're speaking of. That eventually, will be on the helm. Would be, it could be possible. We know that God is in control, but at the end of the day,
Yeah,
when you interject human, um, what was the saying? When you have power corrupts,
Oh, I was
but
exactly thinking of that.
absolute power corrupts. Yeah, corrupt absolutely.
yes,
That
yes,
So
that
that's
yes.
that that's what this opens the window to. And
Yeah, and I
so,
asked that question because when I was researching, I part of the executive order says that the idea is that churches can compete on a level playing field, on a level playing field for
yeah,
grants, for contracts,
yeah,
for programs, and other federal funding opportunities. So that's why I'm asking the question, because you
yeah,
know. But at the end of the day, as Adventists, based on the faith that we have, what the Bible predictions, these things are going to happen, whether we like it or not, whether we believe it or not, whether we are prepared for it or not. So
yeah.
the church and the state are going to come together, because it is impossible for a government to control a society if they don't are part of the religion.
yeah, and
And governments,
well, I just want to take a
yes,
moment since you're bringing that up. If you are a listener to this podcast, you just heard Pastor Soto talk about what the Bible tells us about what we can expect in the future. I want to just drop a little thing here that these two individuals, these two men, one is based in the capital district of New York, one is based in central New York and out of the Syracuse area. we don't we don't have the time, and it really, this stuff is better done face to face than kind of in this format. If you
yeah,
are saying, well, what are they talking about, Daniel, Revelation, listen, get in touch with them. And if you can get in touch with me, I'll put you in touch with them so that you can meet them face to face, and they can really give you a little bit more context about what Pastor Soto and Pastor Esposito are talking about. That the Bible does tell us that there's going to come a time where people are going to have to do things the way you're told to do it as it relates to worship. And
Yeah,
probably
there.
the fear is that to try to do something to protect Christianity, if you're not careful, you give control after a while. It's not only going to protect it, it's going to defend it, and then it's going to force it. And the question is, whose version of
being
Christianity are we going to
imposed.
enforce? Yeah.
Yeah.
Pastor
Hmm.
Esposito, you can say something.
Yeah, there's also a case going on right here in Syracuse at the moment with a judge that denied marrying two same-sex couples because of her beliefs, and she was placed on the bench. And they have gone after her. I know from on behalf of our church, we've sent her an email, of encouragement and reaching out to her office to let her know that there are people praying for her. So in the flip side of this, and maybe some sort of positive outlook, if you will, that there might be somebody asking there that's watching us, well, I haven't seen any discrimination against Christians, and maybe I'm not a Christian. I don't discriminate. I don't care what they're doing. The fact of the matter is that there is
It
some
happened.
sort of
Yep.
There has been a lot of,
persecution or
yes, discrimination.
isolation of it,
Yes.
and there's many more cases like
Hmm.
that have gone on throughout the country.
Hmm.
So, it's like I said, it's great in that sense that now Christianity is, placed in a respectable sort of plateau, if you will. But unfortunately, when you
Hmm.
put humans to sort of direct that, it opens a lot of can of worms, if you will, to that. So
Yes.
it's
Yes.
it's kind of wait and see. We have to continue to pray for our government and our leaders. I don't know if this is part of the topic or no, Pastor Grasso, but it also. I'm interested to see the person that's been appointed to this. It's also a very interesting personality
Oh
within
yes.
Christianity as well. And that
Yeah.
also brings up some, very, it's the pastor that's involved in, that's going to
Yep.
head this department is participating in a lot of ecumenical movements throughout America and prosperity
Paula
gospel,
White.
which we know
Yeah.
some, yeah, Paula
Hmm.
White,
Hmm.
which presents, some sort of issues, and it has in Christianity at large. So,
Yeah. Well, I
it's
think if you're a
Yeah.
Christian,
In
oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Soto.
I'm sorry. And adding to that, Pastor Esposito, to close probably that idea there, there is also another way to look at this executive order, and is that it can be viewed as an answer to the discriminatory practices and persecution, like you said, that have happened in the last couple of years. Because the same day that President Trump signed that order, he also signed the release, uh, he pardoned a pro-life activist that were being prosecuted by by the previous administration, just because that person was uh, visiting or getting close by clinics of abortions, and he was
Mm,
praying for
yeah.
them and for what was happening. And just because that person was praying, he was detained and prosecuted. So it also
Yeah.
comes as an answer of for the attacks
Yeah.
that were being done against the church or against Christians' faith by other organizations and other ideologies.
Yeah.
So it can be looked with a positive sense in
Yeah.
that particular regard.
If
Yeah.
you're listening to us talk right now and we're talking about this creation of the White House Faith Office, you may be saying, well, wait a minute. Are you for it or are you against it? I'm not understanding what you're talking about. The fact of the matter is that it's both. It's a great thing to be able to finally undo some of the things that have happened to Christians, whether they've been praying someplace, whether they have been standing up for their faith, just living by what they believe. I will take part in this. I will not take part in that. And all of a sudden, you get in trouble. But it's if you know anything about history, you have to keep your antennas up, as they say, because it's where
Yeah.
this thing can go. And of course, then when you add to it what the Bible says about what we are going to be facing in the future, it when you hear people say Bible prophecy is being fulfilled, this is the type of stuff that potentially we're referring to. Christians have been discriminated against, and it's good to see that some of this is going to be addressed. But where does that go? And so those are things we need to look out for. Guys, I wanna thank you for at least having a discussion here. I don't know that we convinced anybody of anything because it sounds like we like it and we don't like it, right? We're
Yeah,
for
that's
it
right. I
and
think in a
Yes, the
very
thing is that, yes, go ahead, Pastor.
in a very practical sense, I think we obey government up until the point where it stops, as far as obeying the word of God and doing God's will. And I think we should, as a church,
Mhm.
maybe, again, be excited about it, obviously keeping an arm's distance from it, but also being excited for because this could potentially be a good opportunity for revival in our cities, in our towns, in our local churches, where people are going to be more interested to
Mhm.
say, hey, what is the Bible saying? And we should jump on that opportunity, at least when Christianity is mentioned or Christianity is brought to a forefront, to take the time to actually teach people what the Bible says and where it's all headed. And I
there
think
you go.
that we have an excellent opportunity and we know, based on what Scripture says, that there will also be a revival as
Yeah.
well that's going to come along with this. And so,
So
I
I,
think
I, I so
we're
I
in a
have
good
given you
opportunity.
I've given you some fuel for probably your next sermon, right? This news article
Right.
is,
Yes.
is,
Yes.
is so
Yes.
send me a
Yes.
copy. I want to hear it. Send me a copy. All right. Well,
Yeah.
uh,
So I think that everything comes to the people that are watching, that are going to watch. I don't know probably which city or state or country you are going to watch this, but the thing is that we have to look at everything with a critical mindset. you know so just because you follow a government, just because you follow a political party, you can just you cannot believe or follow everything just blindly. You need to have a critical mindset, because at the end of the day, as a human being, we are called to pursue truth, right? And freedom. So, and as Christians, this is what matters to us: is truth, and what the Bible says to us, that we should do and that we should teach, and how we should live. So, just because a president is being favorable to Christians, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be, looking to that with a critical mindset. So the Bible first, the
that's
Bible
right.
first. So this is our motto. Yeah,
Critical
the Bible
thinking,
first.
even with your pastors.
There you go.
Of course, of
Except
course.
except the two of
Yeah.
you. Except these two guys, right?
No,
No,
even
no,
with
no, no,
us,
no.
Okay,
even with
good.
us.
Good
Even
answer.
with
Good
us,
answer.
even with us.
Good answer.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, look, I want to thank you for joining me, pastors, on the podcast here to talk about this. This is an interesting topic. I think if you are not a student of the Bible, if you're not a student of Bible prophecy, maybe this seems like just another thing that was done. This office has been in here since George Bush was president, the first George Bush, but now it's been kind of revamped, and they've got some new things that they want to do. Maybe it's not a big deal, but if you're a student of the Bible, you start to think, because the Bible tells us that there will come a time when we're going to have to make some hard decisions, and the world will want to force you to worship a certain way. And even within Christianity, we don't all agree on the same things. And so, something to keep your antennas up for. We do need to fight persecution wherever it exists, whenever, like, judges or people are being persecuted because they believe in God and believe in the Bible. They should not have to face these things. So, this is a good thing, but where is it going to go? We'll have to wait and see. Now, I want to share a Bible verse as we
Mm-hmm.
end the podcast here, because, some of us, we look at government as the savior. And right now, there are a bunch of people that are really upset because the guy or the girl they supported lost, but they're really excited because the guy they pushed for won. And but there is no savior but one. And Psalms 118 verse 9 says, "It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes." I'm going to leave you with that as we end the podcast. I want to thank my fellow pastors in the work for being a part of this episode. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.